Welcome to the Veil Weaver. Come in from the cold, settle yourself. Let the weight of the day find its way down through the body, through the shoulders and the back, into whatever is holding you. You don't need to carry it any further tonight. It can wait outside, in the dark, with everything else that the night is keeping. The night out there is large tonight. We are going east, further east than the Greek and Roman world, further east than the Celtic edge of Europe, into a different kind of landscape entirely, into the vast interior, the plains and the forests and the mountains of the Slavic world, which stretches from Poland in the west to Russia in the east, from the Baltic coast in the north to the Balkans in the south, and in tonight's case, a little further south still, into Romania, where the Carpathian Mountains rise out of the plain, with the specific dramatic conviction of mountains that have been doing this for a very long time and have no intention of stopping. I want to say something about this world before we enter it, because it has a quality that distinguishes it from the Greek and the Norse and the Celtic traditions we have visited in these stories. In the Greek world, the power of the women we met was rooted in knowledge. Pharmakeia, the intimate understanding of plants and stars and transformation. In the Norse world, it was rooted in sight, the ability to see what others couldn't, to stand at the boundary of the known and read what was on the other side. In the Celtic world, it was rooted in sovereignty. The land was female, and the women of that tradition held the source of all political and spiritual authority. The women of the Slavic and Romanian world are different from all of these. They are not primarily practitioners of something. They are not primarily holders of a role. They are not primarily sources of authority that the official world depends on, even while fearing it. They are forces. They are the forest. They are the winter. They are the season that turns whether you want it to or not. The cold that comes regardless of your preparation. The deep woods that do not make accommodations for human preference. They are not good or evil in any sense that the word good or evil was designed to hold. They are wild, in the oldest, most literal meaning of that word, belonging to the wilderness, ungoverned, existing according to their own laws, rather than any law that human beings have agreed on. There is a phrase I keep returning to from the Romanian tradition. It describes Muma Pădurii, the mother of the forest, one of the figures we will visit tonight. It goes like this: she is neither evil nor kind. She is wild. That sentence is the spine of everything tonight. The witch of the European fairy tale tradition, the one in the gingerbread house, the one with the poisoned apple, the wicked stepmother, is a figure of clear moral valence. She is evil. Her evil is the point. Her defeat is the lesson. But the figures we are visiting tonight resist that frame as completely as the weather resists it. The forest in winter does not consider whether it is being kind or cruel when it covers the path in snow. The storm does not consult its conscience before breaking the trees. The night does not apologize for being dark. These women do not apologize either. They also, it turns out, do not eat children quite as reliably as the later tradition would prefer. But we will come to that. We begin in the forest, in the Russian forest, specifically the taiga, the vast, dark, dense, ancient woodland that covers more of the Earth's surface than any other forest on the planet. The forest that has no edges that a person could walk to in a reasonable time. the forest that has been standing longer than any city, any nation, any religion that exists in its vicinity. The forest that has a resident. You can find her if you go deep enough, or she will find you. She lives at the edge. Not the edge of the forest as you or I might understand it. The place where the trees give way to a field, where the path emerges into sunlight, where the managed world reasserts itself, and the wildness recedes. Her edge is a different kind of boundary. It is the place where the living world meets the dead one, where the ordinary rules of cause and effect become unreliable, where the hero who has been confidently following the path suddenly discovers that the path has opinions of its own. In that place, in every Russian fairy tale that features her, there is a hut. The hut stands on chicken legs. This detail, which is delivered in the tales with the matter-of-fact precision of a detail that requires no explanation, as if huts standing on chicken legs were simply one of the things that huts do, is one of the most distinctive images in all of world folklore. The hut that turns. The hut that faces the forest with its back to the village or the path, so that the hero who arrives at it from the human side encounters only a blank wall, a dead end, a refusal. Only when the correct words are spoken. Turn your back to the forest, your front to me. Does the hut rotate? Does the door appear? Does the encounter become possible? The hut is surrounded by a fence. The fence is made of bones, human bones, in most accounts, each post topped with a skull, and the skulls glow with an inner light, illuminating the clearing with the specific cold luminescence of something that was once alive and no longer is. The gate is built from legs and arms. The lock is a jaw with teeth that function as keys. She lives in this house. She has lived in this house for longer than anyone alive can remember, because no one alive can remember a time before her. She is old in the way that very few things in any mythology are old. Not wise elder old, not ancient and dignified old, but old in the way of something that predates the categories that would make oldness either dignified or pitiful. She has legs of bone, spindle shanks, the tales call them, bony legs that drag behind her through the air when she flies. Her nose is so long that when she sleeps in her hut, it scrapes the ceiling. Her teeth, when she shows them, are iron. She flies in a mortar, steering with a pestle, sweeping away her tracks with a broom. The mortar is an implement of transformation. It is what you put things in to grind them into something else. Grain becomes flour. Herbs become medicine. The whole world, in the mortar's logic, is raw material for something that has not yet been made. Her name is Baba Yaga. Baba means grandmother, or old woman, the same root that gives Russian its word babushka. Yaga is harder to translate. It carries connotations of serpent, of illness, of the particular quality of malevolence that is not personal, but elemental, that belongs to the force rather than the person. Together, the name means something like the grandmother of all dark things, the old woman who is also the wildness itself. She appears in hundreds of Russian fairy tales, and in almost none of them is she simply a villain. This is the thing that the popular tradition, the Western reduction of her to a wicked witch in a dark forest, consistently fails to capture. In the Russian tales, she is something considerably stranger than a villain, and considerably more useful. She is a test. She is a threshold. She is the being whose response to you, whether she helps or hinders, Whether she gives you what you need or puts you in the oven depends almost entirely on how you approach her. The heroes who succeed with Baba Yaga are not the brave or the powerful. They are the ones who observe protocol, who say the right things, who do not boast, who, when she sets them a task, complete it without complaint or excuse, who, when she asks if they want food and rest before hearing their business, say yes. Because the correct thing is to feed a guest before interrogating them, and the guest who refuses is already announcing that they do not understand the rules of this place. The heroes who fail, who bluster, who boast, who try to overpower or trick rather than engage, end up in the oven, or worse. The most famous story is the one told about Vasilisa. Vasilisa is a young woman living with a stepmother and stepsisters who treat her as a servant, an arrangement familiar from fairy tales across the world, though the Russian version has its own specific texture. Vasilisa's own mother died when she was young and left her a gift, a small wooden doll kept in her pocket, fed tiny crumbs of food, consulted in moments of difficulty. The doll advises her. It does the impossible tasks when Vasilisa is asleep. It is the accumulated wisdom of the mother, made small and portable and always available. The stepmother, in a calculated act of cruelty, sends Vasilisa into the forest to fetch fire from Baba Yaga. This is not an errand. This is a sentence. No one who goes to Baba Yaga's house comes back. The forest at night is the forest at night, and Baba Yaga is Baba Yaga, and the stepmother expects to be rid of a troublesome stepdaughter. Vasilisa goes. She witnesses 3 riders on the way, one white, one red, one black, who are the dawn, the sun, and the night, all in Baba Yaga's service, all passing through the world on her schedule rather than any other. This tells Vasilisa something important before she arrives. Baba Yaga is not outside the order of the world. She governs part of it, the part that most people prefer not to think about. She arrives at the hut. She asks for fire. She is given 3 impossible tasks first: a year's worth of laundry to sort, a mountain of grain to clean, a harvest of poppies to separate from their dirt. She completes them overnight, with the doll's help, sleeping while the doll works. Baba Yaga, in the morning, does not praise her. She acknowledges the work. She asks how it was done. Vasilisa says, "By my mother's blessing." Baba Yaga stops. She says, "Blessed things are not for me. Take your fire and go." And she sends Vasilisa home with one of the glowing skulls from the fence, the fire Vasilisa came for. The skull, when Vasilisa arrives home, burns the stepmother and stepsisters to ash. The fire from Baba Yaga's fence, the light from the bones of the dead, is not a metaphor for justice. It is justice. In the logic of this world, cause and consequence are the same thing, and the woman who sent a child into the forest at night receives the fire she sent the child to fetch. What does this story tell us about Baba Yaga? That she did not help Vasilisa because Vasilisa was good. In the European fairy tale tradition, goodness is often rewarded simply for being goodness. The kind girl is helped because she is kind, but Baba Yaga does not operate on this logic. She helped Vasilisa because Vasilisa followed protocol. She did the tasks. She did not complain. She did not demand. She had her mother's blessing, which is to say, she had inherited knowledge from a woman who had already understood something about how the world works and had passed that understanding on in the smallest possible form a wooden doll fed crumbs. Baba Yaga respects this. It is the thing she respects. She is not moral. She is exacting. But Vasilisa shows only one face of her. To see the full range of what she is, you need a second story, one that is, in its own way, even more revealing. The tale is called Maria Morevna. It begins not with Baba Yaga at all, but with a warrior queen. Prince Ivan, the youngest son, which in Russian fairy tale logic is always the one who matters, meets and marries a woman named Maria Morevna. She is not the kind of woman who waits to be rescued. She is a military commander. When Ivan first finds her, he comes upon a field strewn with the dead and asks a survivor who killed them all. The answer, Maria Morevna. She has won this battle herself. Ivan falls in love with her immediately and completely, which given the circumstances seems reasonable. They marry. For a time, they are happy, in the compressed way that fairy tales allow happiness. But then, Maria Morevna goes to war again and leaves Ivan with one prohibition. Do not open the door of the dungeon in the cellar. This door, no other, just this one. He opens it. Of course he opens it. He is Ivan. He is the youngest son in a Russian fairy tale. Opening the forbidden door is what he does. Behind a door, chained to the wall, emaciated, barely alive, is Koshai, the deathless, the immortal sorcerer whose soul is hidden inside a needle, inside an egg, inside a duck, inside a chest buried under an oak on an island at the edge of the world. He cannot die until the egg is found and broken. He has been chained in Maria Morevna's dungeon for 10 years, and he is wretched. He begs Ivan for water. Ivan, who has a kind heart and very poor judgment about when to exercise it, gives him water, and then more water, and then more still. With each bucket, Koshai grows stronger until his chains snap, and he flies from the dungeon like a storm, taking Maria Morevna with him. Ivan pursues. He is killed. His brothers-in-law, 3 wizards who married his 3 sisters and who can transform into a falcon, an eagle, and a raven, find him dead in a barrel thrown into the sea and revive him with the water of life. Ivan is reassembled from pieces, revived, and goes after Maria Morevna again. He is killed again, revived again, goes again. 3 times. The fairy tale logic of 3s, which is not laziness, but cosmological precision. 3 deaths, 3 revivals, before his brothers-in-law tell him the truth he needs to hear. The reason Koshai cannot be caught is that Koshai has a magical horse faster than any ordinary steed. The only way to get a horse to match it is to go to Baba Yaga, who lives beyond the Fire River, who has horses that can fly around the world in a single day, and who will give one to you if you can tend her mares for 3 days without losing any. Ivan crosses the Fire River. With a magical handkerchief that becomes a bridge, he finds the hut on chicken legs. He says the words. The hut turns. Baba Yaga greets him with food, a bath, a bed, and her terms. Herd my mares for 3 days. Every mare home at sunset, and you receive the best horse in my stable. 1 mare missing, and I add your head to the fence. The first morning, Ivan opens the stable, and the mares scatter to every corner of the world. He lies down and weeps, because there is nothing else to do. At sunset, a bird whose nestlings he spared on the long journey gathers them. The mares return. Baba Yaga is furious. She berates the mares for coming back, who explain that every bird in the world drove them home. The second day, the lioness whose cub he spared drives them back. The third day, the bees. 3 days. 3 animals repaying all kindness. 3 sets of mares returning at sunset. On the third night, a bee whispers to Ivan, "Do not take the horse Baba Yaga offers you. Take the sad-looking colt in the corner." Ivan steals out at midnight, takes the colt, rides hard for the fire river. When Baba Yaga discovers the theft in the morning, she chases him in her mortar with her pestle, covering ground the way she always covers ground, vastly, without effort. She reaches the fire river. Ivan has crossed it with the handkerchief bridge. She drives onto what she believes is the bridge, and it collapses beneath her. She falls into the fire river. There she dies, or she appears to die. She is Baba Yaga, and scholars of the tradition note, not entirely joking, that she is likely revivable faster than you can say her name. Ivan rides away with the colt, who becomes a magnificent horse, and returns to rescue Maria Morevna. This time, he has a steed to match Koshchei's. This time, he succeeds. What does this story tell us about Baba Yaga that Vasilisa did not? 2 things. The first, Ivan does not approach her the way Vasilisa did. He comes with desperation rather than genuine humility. He lets her believe he has earned the horse through protocol, when in fact he steals it at midnight on a bee's advice. She chases him. She nearly catches him. The outcome differs, because the approach differs. Vasilisa went to Baba Yaga with real need and real respect, and received real help. Ivan went in desperation, performed the surface requirements, and took more than he was offered. He gets what he came for, but the relationship ends in a fire river. The second thing is this. Koshchei, the immortal villain, the deathless sorcerer, the man whose horse makes him nearly impossible to defeat. Koshchei earned that horse from Baba Yaga. Before the story begins, he went to her, tended her mares for 3 days without losing one, and she gave him a foal. The foal became the horse Ivan must now match. She gave the villain his power. She gave the hero the power to counter it. She gave both of them what they came for, on exactly the same terms, asking only that they tend the mares. She did not know, or did not care, what Koshchei would do with the horse. She did not tailor her terms to reward heroism or punish villainy. She simply had horses and conditions, and whoever met the conditions received the horse. And what they did with it afterward was their own business entirely. She is the source of both. The villain's power and the hero's counterpower flow from the same old woman beyond the fire river. She is not on anyone's side. She is the place where power comes from, and she deals with whoever arrives on the same terms, without preference, without agenda, without anything that resembles care for the outcome. This is what it means to be a force rather than a person. One more image before we move on. In some versions of these tales, not all, but enough to be a genuine strand of the tradition, Baba Yaga is not one woman, but 3. 3 identical old women in 3 identical huts on 3 identical sets of chicken legs, spaced through the deepening forest. The hero visits the first hut, receives food and information and a gift, continues deeper, visits the second, receives more, continues, visits the third. 3 Baba Yagas, 3 huts, 3 identical encounters. The image refuses the idea of her as an individual. She is not a person who happens to be named Baba Yaga. She is a principle, something the forest generates at its boundary as consistently as winter generates cold. She recurs because she is not singular. She is as many as the forest requires, in as many places as the boundary between the living world and the dead. One needs a guardian. She is not moral. She is exacting. Across the Slavic world, she takes different names. In the Czech and Slovak lands, she is Jezibaba, Yezibaba, another grandmother of the forest, who lives in the same hut on chicken legs and performs the same structural function in the stories told about her. The tales are different in their specifics, but identical in their logic. She helps those who approach correctly and destroys those who don't. She is the forest's examination, the threshold's test. Western Slavic, Eastern Slavic, the same essential figure, puts on local clothes and speaks local dialects without changing what she fundamentally is. She's been here since before the fairy tales that contain her. The scholars who have studied her most carefully believe she is the residue of something much older than the stories, a figure from pre-Christian Slavic religion, possibly a goddess of death and transformation, possibly a guardian of the boundary between this world and the next. Her hut on chicken legs, situated precisely at that boundary, so that the dead pass through it on their way out, and the heroes who need something from the world of the dead pass through it on their way in. The Christianization of the Slavic world, which began in the 9th and 10th centuries, and was thorough, though thorough in a way that rain is thorough. It gets into everything, but doesn't always change what's underneath. Tried to make Baba Yaga simply monstrous, simply the wicked old witch, the child eater, the figure to be defeated by the hero and thereby neutralized. But she kept not staying neutralized. She kept turning up in the next story, in her hut that is always on chicken legs, at the boundary that is always between the worlds, testing the next hero with the same specific, unimpressed attention she has always brought to the business of testing. She is not interested in whether the hero is brave. She is interested in whether the hero is ready, whether they know how to ask, whether they understand that they are standing at the edge of something that was old before they were born and will be old after they die. The forest at night is very large and very dark. The hut is somewhere in it. The skulls on the fence glow with their cold light. Inside, something very old is sleeping, or pretending to sleep, or watching through one eye. Say the right words. Turn the hut. Walk in. She will see you now. Further south and west now, into the Carpathian Arc, the mountains that curve in a great crescent through Romania, through Transylvania, through the landscapes that the rest of the world has learned primarily from vampire stories, but which have their own, much older, much stranger inhabitants. The forests here are different from the Russian taiga, denser in some places, more varied. The beech and the oak mixed with the spruce, the slopes of the mountains descending into valleys, where the light has a quality in afternoon that makes everything look slightly more real than it is. Romanian forests have a specific quality of being watched, not watched maliciously, watched in the way that a place watches you when it has been watching things for so long that watching is simply what it does. This is her forest. She has been in it since before the trees. Her name is Muma Pădurii, the Forest Mother, the mother of the forest, not a mother who happens to live in the forest, the spirit of the forest itself, given the shape of a very old woman, given the specific form that a culture reaches for when it tries to put a face on something that does not ordinarily have one. She is ugly. The Romanian tradition is very specific about this. She is among the ugliest figures in Romanian folklore, and Romanian folklore isn't short of ugly figures. She is old beyond ordinary oldness, crooked, her face a map of the forest's own textures, skin like bark, hair like the lichen that grows on old beech, eyes like the dark hollow in an oak where something lived and left. She lives in a small dark house deep in the forest, or sometimes in the trunk of a very old tree, or sometimes in a cave where no light reaches. She moves through the forest with the ease of someone for whom the forest is not a landscape to be navigated, but a body to inhabit. She is not evil. I want to say this carefully, because the fairy tale tradition has worked hard to flatten her into the wicked witch archetype. The old woman in the dark house who kidnaps children and tries to boil them. The Romanian equivalent of the hag in the gingerbread house. And yes, she does kidnap children in some of the tales. She does try to boil one in a pot in a story that runs almost identically to Hansel and Gretel, the clever sibling pushing the monster into her own oven. These tales exist, and they are not simply literary inventions. They are the cautionary layer of the tradition. The stories told to keep children from wandering into the forest alone. But underneath the cautionary layer is something older and more interesting. Muma Pădurii brews potions for injured animals. This is one of the details of the deeper tradition that the fairy tale surface most consistently obscures. The forest's guardian tends the forest. She knows which animals are sick, and she knows what they need, and she makes the preparations that heal them. She knows every tree by name, not metaphorically, but specifically, the way you know the names of people you have lived with for a very long time. When the forest is dying, she grieves it with the specific grief of someone who is losing a part of themselves, which is because she is. Her hostility to humans is not malice, it is guardianship. The people who come off worst in encounters with Muma Pădurii are the people who enter the forest without respect, the woodcutters who take more than they need, the hunters who wound animals they cannot find to kill cleanly, the children who break branches for no reason, who disturb the nest, who treat the forest as raw material for their entertainment, rather than as a place that has its own requirements and its own rules. She drives these people mad. Literally, in the tradition, she can cause a person to lose their sense of direction so thoroughly that they wander the same stretch of forest for days without finding an exit, which in a dense Carpathian beech forest is not a metaphorical experience. She can also grant gifts. The hunter who comes to the forest with respect, who takes what he needs and leaves what he doesn't, who knows the old courtesies. These she may help, not warmly, not with the fairy godmother's enthusiasm, but with the specific neutral competence of someone who acknowledges an appropriate relationship when she sees one and responds to it accordingly. She is amoral rather than immoral. This is the distinction I keep wanting to make, and that the fairy tale tradition keeps wanting to obscure. Immoral does not mean without ethics. It means that her ethics are not human ethics, that the framework she operates within is the framework of the forest rather than the framework of the village. The forest's ethics are: take what you need, leave what you don't, maintain the relationship between the living things that makes the whole system work. She enforces this framework. She does not enforce human social norms. There is a tradition in some parts of Romania of leaving small offerings at the edge of the forest before you enter. Bread, salt, a small something that acknowledges the passage from the human world into the forest world, that marks the moment of transition as a moment requiring some attention. These offerings are not to Muma Pădurii specifically. The tradition is older and more diffuse than that, but she is what they acknowledge. The awareness that you are entering a place that is not yours, that has its own governance, that is watching you with the specific attention of something that has been watching things in this forest for longer than any living person can account for. She is also, in some accounts, a shapeshifter. She can appear as a beautiful young woman. This is one of the more unsettling details. The ugly old forest guardian who can put on the face of youth and beauty when she chooses. She appears this way to attract and disorient people who would not approach the old woman, but who will follow the young one. The beautiful form is not a disguise in the sense of a deception. It is another truth about the forest, which is beautiful in spring and summer and early autumn, which is inviting and warm and full of light and food, and which is also the place where you can get lost and die. The beautiful face and the barkskin face are both Muma Pădurii, both true. There is a story told in Bistrița Năsud County in northern Romania about a brave man who managed to catch Muma Pădurii, to hold her physically, which is itself a remarkable act, like catching the forest and holding it still. The tradition says that if you can hold her, she must grant you a wish. She has one condition. You may not speak more than 3 words. If you speak a 4th word, she takes your voice. I find myself sitting with that condition. The forest's guardian does not want to hear you talk, not because she is deaf or indifferent. She hears everything. She is the forest, and the forest hears everything that moves through it. But because human speech, human language, human explanation is not the currency of this transaction, 3 words, make them the words that matter. The 4th word is where you start justifying yourself, explaining yourself, adding context and nuance, and the particular verbal architecture that humans build around their requests when they are not sure the request is legitimate. The forest does not want your justifications. It wants to know what you actually need. 3 words is more than enough for that. She is still in the forest tonight, not watching you specifically, or not only you, watching the fox that has a thorn in its paw, listening to the tree that is about to lose a branch, moving through the undergrowth with the ease of something that does not need to avoid the roots, because the roots move for her. She is neither evil nor kind. She is the forest, and the forest is still here. We stay in Romania, but we leave the forest and go up into the mountains. The Carpathians in their most dramatic aspect, the high peaks of the Bucegi Plateau in the south and the Chialu Massif in the north, the sacred mountain of the ancient Dacians who lived here before the Romans came and who left their mark on the land in ways that outlasted the Roman conquest by 2,000 years. These are not gentle mountains. They are the kind of mountains that have opinions about the weather, that create their own microclimates, that can be one season at the base and a different season entirely at the summit. and that do this not occasionally, but habitually, as a matter of course. On the Szeptuchy Plateau, there is a group of rock formations. They are called Babel, the hags, the old women. And standing slightly apart from them, alone on the high ground, there is a single rock formation that the Romanian tradition has always called Baba Dochia. She is still there because she was turned to stone. Let me tell you why. The stories told about Baba Dochia across Romania are many and various. The oral tradition has generated dozens of versions, each valley adding its own specific detail, each generation reshaping the story to fit its own concerns. But the core is remarkably consistent across all of them. Baba Dochia is a woman who goes up a mountain in late winter, thinking that spring has come. She is wrong about this, and the mountain is not patient with people who are wrong about the season. In the most common version, she is a mother-in-law, a particularly difficult one, who has sent her daughter-in-law on an impossible winter errand. Wash this black wool in the river until it turns white. The daughter-in-law goes to the river in the freezing cold and weeps, because the task is impossible, and because she knows what will happen to her if she returns without completing it. A stranger appears, in some versions an old man, in some versions a young one, in some versions identified by later Christian tradition as Christ himself. The stranger gives her a red flower. She washes the wool with the flower. The wool turns white. She brings it home. Baba Dochia sees the white wool and the red flower, and she assumes that spring has come. If her daughter-in-law could get a red flower from somewhere, spring must be here. She puts on her 12 coats, the heavy sheepskin coats of the Romanian shepherd in winter, and she takes her flock of sheep up the mountain. The weather on the 1st of March is good. The sun is warm. She takes off the first coat. The second day is still warm. She takes off the second coat. Day by day, one coat at a time, she sheds her protection against the cold. Day by day, the mountain lets her believe that spring has genuinely arrived. And then, when she's down to her last coat, when she's given up all her protection, when she is committed to the belief that winter is over, the weather turns. It is March. It is a mountain in March. Of course, the weather turns. The cold comes back with a specific fury of winter that has not quite finished. Baba Dochia freezes. She and her flock turn to stone on the high plateau of the Szeptuchy. And there they remain, a group of wind-shaped rock formations that the people who live in the valleys below look up at and still call by her name. The first 9 days of March, the days that correspond to the 9 coats in that version of the story, are called Babel Days, the old women's days. They are understood to be the most capricious days of the year, the days when the weather cannot be trusted, when spring seems to arrive and then retreats, when the mountain borrows days from February to remind you that it has not yet decided to let go of winter. Romanian women traditionally chose one of these 9 days as their own. If your day was sunny, your year would be fair. If your day was cold and stormy, your year would be difficult. The days of the hag, used as a calendar of personal fortune. The Babel days are worth sitting with as a tradition in their own right, separate from the story that explains them. Choosing your day from the 9, assigning yourself to one of Dochia's coats, so to speak, watching the weather on that day as a forecast for your own year, is a practice that turns a cosmic event into a personal one. The old woman on the mountain, freezing in the weather she did not expect, becomes a mirror. Her season is your season. Her misjudgment of the turning is your opportunity to read the turning correctly, to watch the day she once wore and understand from it something about what is coming. This is characteristic of the Romanian relationship with Baba Dochia. She is not a figure to be propitiated or feared in the way that one propitiates a saint or fears a demon. She is a figure to be read. Her story is a weather system and a calendar. And the people who live in the shadow of her mountains have been reading it for centuries. There is another version of Baba Dochia's story, an older one, or perhaps simply a different one. The oral tradition does not always settle on a single origin. In this version, she is not a difficult mother-in-law, but a Dacian princess, the daughter of Decebalus, the last king of the Dacians, who fought the Roman Emperor Trajan for the independence of his people, and lost, who killed himself rather than be captured, whose kingdom became the Roman province of Dacia, whose people became Romanian. Dochia, in this version, flees the Romans after her father's death. She disguises herself and her people as a shepherd and her flock, moving through the mountains to avoid capture. Trajan pursues her, enchanted by her beauty, determined to make her his. She cannot escape. She reaches the summit of the mountain, and she has nowhere left to go. And she prays. She prays to Szeptuchy, the Dacian god, the supreme deity of the people she comes from, and she asks him for one thing: do not let them take me. He turns her to stone, her and her people with her, all of them together, the shepherd and the flock, standing on the high plateau of the Bucegi, where the wind and the rain have been shaping them ever since, into the forms they hold now. The strange mushroom-shaped rocks that the Romanians call Babel. The single standing figure they call Baba Dochia. Szeptuchy is a figure worth pausing on because he tells you something important about the world Baba Dochia, in this version, comes from. He was the supreme deity of the Dacians, whose religion was distinctive enough in the ancient world that Herodotus wrote about it, describing the Dacians as the most courageous and most law-abiding of the Thracians, and connecting their bravery in battle to their belief that death was not an ending, but a passage, that those who died went to Szeptuchy and lived with him, and that this knowledge made dying less terrible than it was for those who believed otherwise. The Dacians who disappeared with Dochia on the mountain in this story were not dying. They were going to their god. The petrification is not loss. It is a form of arrival. This reading transforms the story from a tragedy into something more ambiguous and more powerful. The old woman who froze on the mountain in the first version died of her own presumption. She assumed the season was over before it was ready to be over, and the mountain taught her otherwise. But the Dacian princess who prayed to Szeptuchy made a choice. She asked for this. The permanence of stone, which looks from the outside like the end of a person, was from her perspective the only form of freedom still available to her. The mountain did not take her. She went to the mountain. I find myself sitting with both versions of her story and noticing that they are the same story at their core, even though the surface is entirely different. In both versions, she goes up a mountain in a season that has not yet finished being dangerous. In both versions, she misjudges the mountain, either its weather or its mercy. In both versions, she's turned to stone. In one version, the lesson is about foolish pride, about assuming too early that the hard season is over. In the other version, the lesson is about sovereignty, about choosing the permanence of stone over the humiliation of conquest. But in both versions, the mountain is the agent. The mountain decides. The mountain, with its unpredictable March weather and its high, indifferent plateau, is what ends her. She is not defeated by an enemy or outwitted by a hero. She's caught by the season, doing what the season does, which is not care about her plans. This is the specific quality that connects her to Baba Yaga, to Muma Pădurii, to all the wild women of this tradition. Nature's indifference is not the same as nature's malevolence. The mountain that froze Baba Dochia did not hate her. The March weather that stripped off her coats one by one did not plan her death. It simply turned cold again when it was ready to turn cold. And she was on the mountain when it did. Her spirit, the tradition says, haunts the Babel days. She brings the snowstorms of early March, not out of spite, not as punishment, but simply because she is winter's last expression, the cold that has not yet fully let go, the weather that turns on the mountain plateau before it turns in the valleys below. Her haunting is meteorological. She is the 9 days of uncertain weather, the days when you cannot yet trust that the season has changed, the days that remind you that March is still capable of being winter. She is still up there, the rocks on the Szeptuchy plateau, wind-shaped and strange, standing in the particular formations that look from a distance like a group of old women. A single standing figure, slightly apart from the others, looking east, looking toward where the plains begin and the mountains end, looking the way that people look when they are watching for something that may not come, or looking the way that stone looks, which is in all directions simultaneously, for a very long time, without complaint. We come down from the mountains now. We come down and we travel north and west, out of the Carpathians across the plains of Poland, to a region in the northeast corner of the country called Podlasie. The name means something like the land under the forest. It is a borderland, a region that has shifted between Polish, Lithuanian, Belarusian, and Russian authority across the centuries, that has been held by different powers and influenced by different traditions, that sits at the meeting point of Catholic Poland to the west and Orthodox Christianity to the east. It is a region of small villages, of wooden houses and birch forests and fields that stretch flat to the horizon in every direction, of a landscape that looks simple but is full of something that is not simple at all. In the villages of Podlasie, there are women who heal. They are called Szeptuchy. The word means whisperers, the ones who whisper. It comes from the Polish Szeptuchy, to whisper, which is what these women do when they work. They lean close to the patient and they whisper in voices so low that the words are almost indistinguishable from breath. A prayer or an incantation that is both at once Christian in its vocabulary and pre-Christian in its logic, delivered in a mixture of Polish and Belarusian and Old Church Slavonic that creates a language belonging to no single tradition. They are not mythological. They are not legendary. They are, or were, until very recently, and possibly still are in the most remote villages, real women living in their houses at the edge of the community, receiving the sick and the frightened and the cursed and the broken-hearted, whispering their prayers, performing their rituals with eggs and wax and candles and herbs, sending people home healed or at least helped. There are, by some estimates, fewer than a dozen of them left. I want to tell you about them in this episode about wild women of the Slavic world, because they are the hinge of the whole thing. They are the living version of what Baba Yaga is mythologically. They are the actual women, elderly, orthodox, deeply pious, nothing like the fairy tale witch, who carry in their practice the same tradition that gave rise to the figure in the forest with the chicken-legged hut, the same knowledge, the same relationship with the invisible world, the same understanding that healing is not only a matter of the body. The word for witch in Russian is ved'ma. It comes from the Proto-Slavic root ved'yti, to know, the one who knows. In Ukrainian, it is vid'ma, same root. The witch, in her deepest etymological identity, is simply the woman who knows something, not the woman who has made a pact with darkness, not the woman who rides a broom, the woman who knows. The Szeptuchy is the woman who knows. What she knows, the names of the folk illnesses that orthodox medicine does not recognize. The wind, muscle pain caused by cold exposure. The rose, a skin condition that flares and recedes. Fear, the specific kind of bodily distress that follows a sudden shock. The way the nervous system stays activated long after the danger has passed. The charm, the damage done by someone's hostile gaze or malicious intent, which the Szeptuchy understands as a real force in the world, invisible but consequential. The nerve plait, something that folklorists have compared to what modern medicine calls anxiety or chronic stress. The way distress knots itself into the body and does not easily unknot. For each of these, she has a protocol, a prayer, a ritual action that accompanies the prayer. Hot wax poured into cold water, its shapes read for information about what is wrong, a white cloth placed over the head, and a small piece of flax burned on top, the smoke carrying the illness away. An egg moved over the body, absorbing whatever has settled into it that should not be there, then broken open and its contents examined. These rituals look, to an outside observer, like magic. They are to the Szeptuchy prayer. She would not describe herself as a witch. She would describe herself as a person of faith who has been given a gift by God, which she uses only to help. And here is the thing that matters for tonight's story. The Orthodox Church does not approve of the Szeptuchy. It never has. Their practice occupies the space between official religion and older belief, a space that the institutional church has always found uncomfortable. Their prayers include elements that predate Christianity, invocations of forces and spirits that have nothing to do with the Christian framework, but that have been wrapped in Christian language and practice so thoroughly over the centuries that the two are now indistinguishable to the women who use them. This is what happened to the Slavic witch tradition. Not that it was suppressed, not entirely, not in Podlasie, but that it survived by wearing Christian clothes, by speaking Christian words, by finding in the new framework a continuation of the old function. The woman who knows kept knowing. She changed what she called herself and what she called her knowledge. She did not change the knowledge itself. She also did not charge for it. This is something the sources consistently note. The Szeptuchy does not ask for payment. She receives food, sometimes, or firewood, or something that expresses gratitude in a concrete form, but she does not name a price. She cannot refuse to help someone who asks. The knowledge and the understanding she carries is not hers to withhold. It was given to her, and giving it is what she is for. How does a woman become a Szeptuchy? The tradition says the gift is inherited or given in a dream. A grandmother or a great-grandmother visits in sleep and teaches the prayers. Sometimes a saint appears, the Virgin Mary or Saint Nicholas, figures who are in the Orthodox tradition, but who deliver, in these dreams, knowledge that feels considerably older than any of them. The gift cannot be sought. It arrives, and when it arrives, the woman who receives it understands that she has been given something that requires using, that cannot simply be kept. The Szeptuchy are mostly elderly now. Their daughters and granddaughters have moved to cities, to hospitals, to the modern medical system that offers explanations the Szeptuchy cannot compete with: germ theory, pharmacology, the MRI that shows what is happening inside the body in ways that an egg broken into a bowl of water cannot approximate. The knowledge is not being passed on. The dozen or so women who still practice in the villages of Podlasie are the last of their tradition, and they know it. And they continue anyway, because the people who come to them do not come because they have nowhere else to go. They come because what is wrong with them has no name in the modern framework, because what they need is the specific quality of attention that the Szeptuchy offers. Someone who will sit with them and whisper close and treat what is invisible as though it is real. Because sometimes what is invisible is real. If you went to see a Szeptuchy, if you were in Podlasie, if you knew who to ask, if you had the specific problem that modern medicine could not quite reach, here is what it would look like. You would arrive at a small house. It would not announce itself. There would be no sign, no queue, nothing to distinguish it from the other houses in the village, except perhaps a quality about it. A sense that this is a house that has received many people, that has heard many things said quietly within its walls. You would knock. She would let you in. The interior of a Szeptuchy's house is unlike any other interior in the village. The walls are covered in icons, dozens of them, in some cases, overlapping, each one framed or simply propped or nailed directly to the wood, the faces of saints and the Mother of God looking out from every surface. On the shelves between them, herbs in jars, candles in different colours, eggs, a bowl for the wax, things in small tied bundles whose contents you can guess at from the smell. The room feels like a private chapel that is also a working pharmacy, that is also a grandmother's kitchen. All of these things are true simultaneously. She would sit across from you. She would listen. She would ask what is wrong in the specific way of someone who already has categories for what is wrong. Not the categories of the medical textbook, but the categories of folk experience. The names for the things that trouble people when the trouble has no clinical name. She would not be surprised by anything you told her. She has heard everything. Then she would begin. She might pour hot wax into a bowl of cold water and lean forward to read the shapes that form, the way a doctor reads a scan, looking for information in a medium that most people cannot interpret. She might move an egg slowly over your body, rolling it across the shoulders and the back and the chest, drawing into the egg whatever has settled in you that should not be there, and then crack the egg into a glass of water and look at what comes out. She might place a white cloth over your head and burn a small piece of flax on top of it, the smoke rising straight if things are clear, twisting if something is still caught. And throughout all of this, she would be whispering, continuously, quietly, the words barely audible, even to you sitting right in front of her. The prayer is in 3 languages at once. Polish, which is the language of everyday life. Belarusian, which is the language of the borderland, the language that marks this region as between things. And Old Church Slavonic, which is the language of liturgy, the language in which the Orthodox Church has prayed for 1,000 years, which sounds to modern ears like a version of Russian that has gone very deep into itself. The 3 languages wound together create something that belongs to all of them, and none of them, that is more than the sum of its parts in the way that the most effective things often are. There is a documented example of a Szeptuchy's healing prayer that was translated for a Polish radio documentary. It goes roughly, "Evil spirit, do not wake the man up. Do not crush his bones. Do not dry up his blood. Do not touch the veins. From veins, from body, bones and eyes, from legs and hands, take off what clings." The prayer addresses the illness directly, not God, not the saint, but the thing itself, commanding it to leave in the voice of someone who has the authority to issue that command. The word has power. The breath carries it. The whispering is not volume reduced, it is intensity focused. The way a lens focuses light into something that can start a fire. There is a documentary made some years ago about the Szeptuchy of Podlasie. In it, an elderly woman is asked whether she is afraid of dying, afraid that her knowledge will die with her. She says something that I have been thinking about ever since. She says, the knowledge does not die with the person. It goes back where it came from. And when it is needed again, it will come back. I do not know if that is true in any literal sense. I do not think she means it literally. I think she means something about the relationship between need and knowledge. The way that when communities desperately need something, they tend to find it. The way that the capacity for this kind of knowing, the knowledge of the invisible, the understanding of what ails people, when what ails them has no name in the official vocabulary, does not seem to be something that disappears permanently from human communities. It hides, it waits, it puts on different clothes. Baba Yaga is in the forest, Muma Pădurii is in the trees, Baba Dochia is on the mountain in March, and in a small wooden house in Podlasie, a very old woman is sitting in a chair, surrounded by icons, and listening to someone tell her what is wrong. And she is leaning forward, and she is beginning to whisper. We come back to the fire, or we come back to where the fire would be. If this were a house in the forest, if this were the hut on chicken legs, with its clearing, and its fence, and its particular cold light, we come back to the center of the thing, the place where the night and the warmth meet, the threshold between. Look at the women we have visited tonight. Baba Yaga, in her rotating hut at the edge of the living world, who has been testing heroes and destroying the ones who get it wrong and helping the ones who get it right for longer than any tradition can fully account for. Who is not evil, who is exacting, which is a different and more demanding thing. who asks not whether you are good, but whether you are ready, whether you understand what you are asking and why, whether you have the quality of attention that she is willing to deal with. The fairy tales tried to make her simply wicked. She kept being something more complicated than wicked. She kept helping people when they approached her correctly. She kept refusing to be only the monster. Muma Pădurii, the forest's own face given a body, who heals the animals of the forest and drives the disrespectful humans mad with equal commitment, who can be beautiful or terrible, depending on what the forest is at that moment, who has conditions for human entrance to the space she governs, and who enforces those conditions not out of spite, but out of the logic of the forest itself, who is neither evil nor kind, who is wild. Baba Dochia, who went up the mountain thinking spring had come, who shed her coats one by one in the warmth of early March and froze when the cold came back, who is still there on the Szeptuchy plateau, in the stone formations that bear her name, who is also the Dacian princess, who chose stone over capture, who asked to be turned rather than taken, who is the 9 capricious days of March, the weather that cannot be trusted, the reminder that the season has not yet finished deciding what it is, who is not punishing anyone, who is simply what she is, the last of winter, the thing that turns cold again before it finally turns warm, and the Szeptuchy, the whisperers of Podlasie, who are the living, breathing, real and still practicing version of the same tradition that produced all the others, who carry in their whispered prayers and their wax rituals and their careful attention to what is invisible the same root knowledge, the knowledge the word ved'ma is built on, the knowledge of the woman who knows, who have wrapped it in Christian language and Orthodox practice, and who practice it in small wooden houses surrounded by icons, and who do not call themselves witches, and who are. There is a thread running through all of them that I want to name before we rest. In the Greek world, the women we visited were frightening because of their independence, because their knowledge did not require the permission or the structures of the official world. In the Celtic world, they were frightening because of their sovereignty, because the land itself was theirs, and the official world depended on their consent. In the Norse world, they were essential and honoured as often as they were feared, because a world that is honest about endings needs people who can see them clearly. But in the Slavic and Romanian world, the quality that produces the fear is something different and something more fundamental. These women are frightening because they are not subject to the framework of human morality at all. Not because they are above it, not because they have transcended it, but because they are outside it in the way that the weather is outside it. The forest does not have moral intentions. The winter does not make ethical choices. The season turns because the season turns, and the woman who embodies these forces, Baba Yaga, Muma Pădurii, Baba Dochia, does what they do. She is not vindictive. She is not kind. She is what she is. And what she is has its own complete internal logic that operates regardless of whether the humans in her vicinity find it legible. This is, I think, the most honest picture of power that any tradition has ever managed. Not power as virtue rewarded, not power as knowledge earned, not power as sovereignty legitimately held, power as the thing that the world actually runs on, which is the force that moves through things without asking their permission, the force that bends the trees in the storm, that freezes the shepherd on the mountain, that makes the forest impenetrable to those who approach it without understanding. The feminist thread here is quieter than in the other episodes. It does not need to recover women who are distorted into monsters. It needs to recover the concept itself, the idea that power without moral valence is real and significant and worth understanding on its own terms. That the witch who does not fit the category of either helper or hinderer, who is simply the force that will help you if you come correctly and destroy you if you don't, is not a figure that needs to be made intelligible by being assigned a moral role. She is intelligible already. You just have to be willing to read the logic she is operating on, which is the logic of the forest and the mountain and the season and the ancient knowledge that moves through communities like weather. The night is very quiet now. The forest is dark in the way of forests that have no edges. The darkness that goes in all directions simultaneously, that does not thin out anywhere you could walk to in a reasonable time. Somewhere in it, a hut is standing on its chicken legs. The skulls on the fence glow with their cold light. The mortar is empty. Something very old is sleeping. The mountains to the south are dark at this hour. The Szeptuchy plateau, invisible under the winter sky. The rock formations on the high ground are simply rocks at this hour, stone shaped by wind and rain into the forms they hold, though the people in the valleys below know their names and call the cluster of them by the name that means old women, and know which one, standing slightly apart, is hers. And in Podlasie, in a small village at the edge of a birch forest, an old woman is asleep in a house full of icons. She will wake before dawn. Someone will come to her door. They always do. She will sit with them. She will lean close. She will whisper. The knowledge does not die with the person. It goes back where it came from. And when it is needed again, it comes back. Let the dark reach you now. Not the dangerous dark. Not the dark of the forest that has no edges. Not the dark of the mountain plateau in March. Simply the dark of a night that is what it is. That does not ask whether you are comfortable with it. That has been doing this since long before you were here and will be doing it long after. The wild things are where they always are. The forest, the mountain, the season, the whisper. They are neither evil nor kind. They are still. Sleep now. The veil is thin tonight. It always is. In the old places. In the places where the huts have memories, and the mountains have names, and the forests know who is moving through them, and the old women lean close and speak in the language that is half prayer and half something older than prayer. Sleep. She is neither evil nor kind. She is watching. And tonight, that is enough.